that Atlanta Falcons radio show. So get up, get out, and get something. Get in the zone. We live on the DT. Tune in, cause we about to blow like TNT. Falcons Central Radio show. Gonna be berserk, you heard. We ain't even tripping, catching y'all slipping. What's good, man? On the Pro Football Central Radio Network, hosted by Aaron Freeman and Scott Carasik. What? This right here is a good present for you. Enjoy my presence like I was Santa Claus, man. Chillin', doing it.
Back to Falcons Central Radio. I'm Aaron Freeman, joined as always with Scott Carasik. We are brought to you by a new sponsor, onnit.com/footballradio. Fans can go there to onnit.com, onnit.com/footballradio, and get 10% off on supplements and vitamins. And upcoming, we have Bob Harris of footballdiehards.com. This is Aaron Freeman. I'm joined with Scott Carasik. We have Bob Harris of footballdiehards.com. How you doing today, Mr. Harris?
Hey, I'm doing good. How's it going, guys?
It's going great. We are looking forward to talking some fantasy football with you. Maybe we can get a Falcons slant on this one going. I guess I'll get things going with... I'm looking at these fantasy rankings on all these other websites, and we have once we get into like the Alfred Morris and Trent Richardson territory of first round running backs, would I be wrong for drafting Steven Jackson right after that?
No, I'm drafting him actually. I like him a little better than most people, I think. I'm probably taking him ahead of guys like Alfred Morris. Ahead of Alfred Morris, at least. I guess of those guys that you mentioned. I think the big key for me is the receiving ability. I think he comes into the offense and he gives them a better, receiving threat as a primary back. I think he's only a few years removed. 2006, he had a 90-plus catch season. I'm not expecting that. That's not going to happen. But, to think that he's going to add, 30, 40 passes, maybe more, is not nuts. I think we'll see what Jacquizz Rodgers' role is. I don't expect it to be much if Jackson has as much gas in the tank as it looks like. So I think I'm a little higher on him. I think a guy going into a well-developed offense that brings the tools that he brings to the table, I think he's going to be a very effective part of that offense. I guess the only worry would be maybe the offensive line, the transition there. But even that, I think, he did a lot in St. Louis on his own. I think he is still capable, maybe has another good year of that kind of work in him. And he's going to be pretty well motivated coming into a team that he thinks has a chance to win. And I think has a chance to win, too.
Okay. Because I was looking at these ratings, and I have Maurice Jones-Drew on one of my fantasy teams. And I was very close to dumping him because I was watching him last year. And while he was pretty productive in what limited season he had, I'm looking at him and he reminded me a lot of Michael Turner in 2011, right before the wheels kind of fell off of him. And looking at MJD, if I was drafting somebody and I'm looking at MJD versus Steven Jackson, Steven Jackson's obviously playing for the Falcons. He's going to get a lot more red zone opportunities than MJD is in Jacksonville. And you can trust...
I'll throw out there, I have Jackson rated as a top 10 back. He's my number 10 back right now. MJD is outside my first-round backs. And I think the thing that you bring up is a key point. I think, Jones-Drew case, one of the problems for him is he is, when he's in the game and healthy, he is the lone dimension of a one-dimensional offense. I know they have great receivers. They don't have the strong quarterback play. And past coaching staff have tended to rely too heavily on him, and I think that's been a problem. I mean, he's been it. And I think when Steven Jackson goes to Atlanta, you're going to have to pick your poison. I mean, he's not going to be running against 8 men in the box very often, I would suggest. While Maurice Jones-Drew, that's what he's doing all day long.
So Michael Turner got 10 touchdowns last year, mainly in you could probably say all of them within about 10 yards. Do you think that Steven Jackson in the red zone could possibly put up 15 touchdowns?
I think he could. I think, a lot of it's going to depend on Tony Gonzalez. It's such a great red zone weapon. But he started to tail off in that department, at least. And I think Roddy White's another good red zone, weapon in that. They have a lot of options. That would be my concern. But I still think Jackson is going to give them more. I think he just brings more to the table than Turner does at this point in his career, in their respective careers. I just think Turner had hit that point where, and I'll give him some credit. He was better than I expected last year, was the burner, but he was no burner. I mean, he caught some balls. He looked pretty good catching the ball. But I just think Steven Jackson brings a much more varied skill set. And I think maybe at this point, a little more speed, ability to get around the edge, and still has that power. So, I do think the touchdowns are possible. I would love to see that. But, I guess a lot of it's going to depend, I think, on Tony Gonzalez. And I think, we saw early last year, how dominant he can be in that regard. And then, as the year wore on, things started to change. We'll see how that plays out here early in the year and try and figure things out through the summer.
Okay. With Matt Ryan, you look at Matt Ryan's numbers in the playoffs. He had something like 700 yards and 6 touchdowns against 2 of the better defenses in the league. And I think everybody's pretty confident that Matt Ryan's going to be a top 10 fantasy guy this year. But is he going to be able to take that next step and be one of the top 5 fantasy quarterbacks?
I have him ranked going in as my number 5 quarterback. So, yeah, I do think it's possible. Look, I think, as you look at you look at where he is right now. He's in the top 5 in a lot of the categories. I think people just don't realize what he's got done. His 422 completions tied for 3rd in the league last year, 32 touchdowns, 99.1% passer rating, 4,719 yards, all ranked 5th. And I think the more impressive stat is he led the league in completion percentage, 68.6%. You're looking at a guy who's, I just think he's a guy that's still on the rise. We haven't seen his ceiling quite yet, and he's been pretty impressive as it is. They have the array of weaponry there on the outside. They have it in Gonzalez. They add to it with Jackson. Again, I think the only concern is the transition on the offensive line, and he's kind of dealt with that before. So, with less than stellar offensive line play, let's say. So, I'm thinking he's a player on the rise still.
Okay, so speaking of players on the rise, what are your thoughts on Julio Jones in that 3rd year?
I would like to see it. I think one of the things as a fantasy, we throw around the word expert, I'll say professional, someone who does this, day in and day out, is we tend to be about a year ahead on guys, and last year was a huge thing, everyone was on the Julio Jones bandwagon. I think there is, again, reason to believe that he can continue to improve. You can't call him a breakout because he's already broken out. But can you see him improve? Yes. Look at his postseason. That adds to the evidence. He had the best game of his career, that 11-catch, 182-yard, 2-touchdown game against San Francisco. He's got a lot of records, club records. So we know what he can do, and I think it's going to be more a question of what kind of opportunities the offense provides. How healthy does Roddy White stay in, and how much big is his role? Does Gonzalez, does the kind of the late season fade we saw continue? Or does he come out as a more dominant force again, and does he cut into it? Do they run the ball more with Steven Jackson? There's a lot of questions left. But one thing that is for sure, Jones is, the speed, the size, the athleticism, certainly in sync with Matt Ryan. Coaching staff knows what they have in him. It's hard to overlook a guy like that. It really is.
Okay. Getting away a little bit from the Falcons, a lot of talk has been about, some of these second-year quarterbacks like Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick. Are we expecting these guys to improve, or are they going to be hit like a lot of quarterbacks have been hit in recent years with the so-called sophomore slump?
I think in some cases, a lot of it has to do with if you're looking to pick one of those guys, it seems most likely headed that way. I think it would be Kaepernick because, losing Crabtree, his favorite target. Michael Crabtree hurt the Achilles in OTAs and will most likely miss the entire season. Could be back late in the year. They brought in Anquan Bolden. They have Vernon Davis, who actually, because of the dearth of talent at wideout, actually works some at wideout and probably is their fastest downfield threat on the team. But he's not a reliable downfield threat. He just hasn't been a reliable weapon. I mean, he's been, we've seen flashes at times. So I think if I was worried about any of them, it would be Kaepernick. Long term, if I was a dynasty player, I would not be worried in the least. I'd be looking to get a hold of all the Kaepernick I could. But in a redraft, I may be more interested in the guys like Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Robert Griffin, assuming he's healthy. And it looks like I don't think anybody thinks he's not going to be ready. Griffin is not going to be ready to start week 1. And when you look at the numbers he was putting up when healthy last year, putting up phenomenal numbers. And I don't see enough changes in Washington to make me worry that his numbers will fall. I think in Andrew Luck's case, maybe you're a little concerned that Bruce Arians is gone, but they brought in his college coordinator, Pep Hamilton from Stanford, who's going to use maybe a little more of the West Coast principles that Luck is even more comfortable with, take advantage of his athleticism a little more, and maybe increase his percentage completion, which was maybe one of his weaknesses last year, that and getting hit a lot. And if they can improve on the offensive line and maybe get a little better pass protection from a guy like Ahmad Bradshaw that they brought in, I like Luck. I like Russell Wilson an awful lot because all they did was add to that party with Percy Harvin, a major playmaker. And I think the thing about Russell Wilson is you could see the way they brought him along. Look, that offense is going to run through Marshawn Lynch because, he's a potent weapon. The ground game is great. They have a great defense. But when you watched how they developed Wilson last year, they never really unleashed him until they really needed to. I think it wasn't until like week 11 in Chicago that they turned him loose. This year they can turn him loose from week 1 if they want. He's capable. We've seen it. We know what he can do. The question might be how much they're going to, how much they're going to need that passing attack. I will go ahead and suggest the fact they went out and got Percy Harvin tells me that they think Russell Wilson is somebody who needs to make plays for them, and they're bringing in playmakers for him. Great supporting cast. Love Russell Wilson.
Now, as far as running backs, because that always seems to be a huge hole on my fantasy football rosters and why I'm pretty awful at it, who would you say is the guy to get at running back this year that's kind of unheralded?
I think, look, everyone's going to draft Peterson if you can first, and, nobody expects another 2,000-yard season except Adrian Peterson. And I will say this every time someone asks, I am no longer in the business of saying Adrian Peterson can't do anything Adrian Peterson says he can. It's just, so I think he's going first. I think the guy that I like to rise up a little bit is Jamal Charles, not unheralded, but I like the change of coaching staff. You look at what Andy Reid's history has been with running backs and his willingness to get guys the ball in open space through the passing attack. I think that's a great thing. The guy I like, you mentioned earlier, Trent Richardson, assuming he can stay healthy, you're looking at a guy who's going to be playing for Norv Turner. What has Norv Turner ever done with every running back he's ever touched? Turn them into fantasy gold. We'll go back to Emmitt Smith in 1993, and you can go every year from then down. Whether it was Terry Allen, a guy coming off a couple torn ACLs, whether it was Stephen Davis. You look at what he did with Ricky Williams in Miami. Lamont Jordan had a 1,000-yard season playing under Norv Turner. And Norv also uses these guys as receivers. I think all these guys. Frank Gore had a career high in receptions the year Norv Turner was calling plays for him. So I think that bodes well for him. Beyond that, if you're looking for someone to kind of come out of nowhere, I've been going out on this limb. Chris Ivory is the guy you obviously want to watch going to New York, comes in as de facto number 1. I'm kind of high on Mark Ingram. I think this is the year. If he doesn't do it, he'll never do it. Sean Payton is dead set on getting the running game on track. He really believes that last year that their failure to run the ball effectively, they could have been a lot better in the passing attack. Ingram has had no off-season surgeries. I don't think anyone there thinks Pierre Thomas can handle a full workload. I think they need to limit his workload. So, Ingram is a guy I like too. Bradshaw's a guy I like. There's a lot of – I think this is the year that running backs are kind of easier to get, right?
Makes sense.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what Stephen Ridley does now that, everything's blown up in New England.
Yeah, you have to wonder. It's not a reach to believe that Bill Belichick is – he's won before running the ball. And, you still have Tom Brady, but given the transition in that receiving core, it would not surprise me to see them rely more heavily on the running backs. I would say the same with Shane Vereen, too, maybe as a kind of a breakout candidate as the complimentary back there.
Okay, Bob, where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me all over the place. You can catch me at Football Diehard. You can listen to me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio every Saturday night. We'll be bumping up to 3 shows a week again. Have 4 magazines out on newsstands this summer: the Pro Forecast, Fantasy Football Cheat Sheets, Fantasy Football Draft Book, and Football Diehards magazine. They will be in your face every time you go in a store.
Okay. I'll be looking for those. I definitely need to win my fantasy league this year.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
Hey, this is Rob McClain from Atlanta Falcons cornerback, and you're listening to Falcons Central Radio Show.
Welcome back. We've got Matt Bryant here on the show with us today. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
Matt, you might remember Matt from such game-winning kicks as Seattle in the playoffs, Oakland in the regular season, and Carolina in the regular season. And that was just this past year. I'm going to lead off with a quick question. How exhilarating is it to kick one of those final kicks?
Well, it's always a great thing to be able to help your team out, to get that win, because no matter how you get it, the most important thing is to get that win that day. But to be a part of it, something like that, it's fun to be able to help your team out that way.
Okay, Matt, speaking of clutch kicking, you are one of the Falcons' greatest clutch kickers, in my opinion. And I was just wondering, when you're lining up to kick one of those, final moment kicks, or really any field goal for that matter, what's exactly going through your mind?
Basically, I always tell myself down and through, which basically, I'm saying, keep my head down and kick through the ball. I guess a quote that I heard say one time by Peyton Manning, and was, pressure is what you feel when you're not prepared. So, going out there, I just remind myself, for that moment at hand, I've been preparing, since I was 8 years old, to go out there and kick that ball and to make the kick. So I just try to remind myself obviously you feel the moment at hand coming up, but the pressure aspect of it, you just remind yourself, pressure is what you feel when you're not prepared. Well, I'm prepared. So that kind of helps me to ease the pressure a little bit.
Okay. So when it comes to those big moments, keep your head down. Obviously, that's the big thing that goes through your mind. But when you're on the sideline preparing for it, does the situation on the field play into it at all, or are you just worrying about you?
No, the only thing I can worry about and I can control is me and my actions. And sitting there on the sideline, you sense what's going on in the game. You sense, it may come down to a last-second kick type deal. But I try to approach every kick the same way. I try to approach that same kick in practice, and I try to approach it, so when it comes in the game, it always feels the same. There's different mechanisms that, whenever I run out to the field, sometimes I think about I imagine sitting there playing with my kids and thinking about the smiles on their faces. And that kind of takes the edge off the moment. But I mean, I think that if you got to be able to block out situation at hand, for a couple of seconds, because that's all it really takes for the operation of snap, hold, and kick, and just do your job. I mean, is there pressure? And sure there is. There's but you have to be able to block it out for that short moment of time.
Okay, so you kind of find your happy zone, like Happy Gilmore.
Right, yeah, you try to go to a happy place. I mean, and it's just, and it's also it's the mindset, I guess the will to succeed, to do your best. And just knowing that, as long as you do your best, that's all you can do. I mean, whatever happens is going to happen, but don't shortchange yourself on your effort and just do the best you can.
Okay, when I'm sitting there watching the games and watching you trot on the field in these pressure situations, it's the most nerve-wracking experience for me. So I'm just curious, like, is there like a range? Like in 2006 you kicked a 62-yard field goal, which is like the 5th longest in NFL history. Is there like a range where when you're out there on the field where you're like, I know I'm going to hit this? Because if you can tell me that range, that will make me feel a whole lot better as I'm watching these games.
Well, I mean, it's every day is different. There's been days where I've gone out during pregame, and hit 60s, and there's been days where I've gone out pregame, and about 55 is as good as it's going to get. Every day is different. If we're playing in Denver. I'm guessing you probably hit 65 or more. It's just, there's some places where you're not going to be able, depending on what the field's like and what's going on with the wind and rain and all that good stuff. But for the most part, like in the dome, I usually go back to around 56, 58, and just, if it comes to that in a game, I think I could do it. But for the most part, and also too in a game situation, you're probably gonna be able to kick a little bit further because, like I said, you got the adrenaline going through you. You're in the moment, and who knows? I mean, whenever I went out there to kick that 62-yarder back in 2006, if you'd asked me day before that game, I'd probably told you that I don't think that I could do it. I never really tried, but I went out there when my time was called, and I did the best I could, and it went through with some room to spare. So I mean, you never know. That's why I always try to tell kids, just always do your best, and whatever happens, happens.
I can definitely agree with that. Now, you've got a pretty big family, right?
Yes, we have 7 kids.
Wow.
How is it moving? I'm one of 6 kids, so how is it moving? Because I know that you played in Tampa, you played in a couple other places. How is it moving around the country with them?
Well, when me and my wife got married, we were in Tampa. So, I mean, the kids have only had to make really one big move, and that was from Tampa to here. Hopefully, they'll never have to make another move again. But I mean, it's part of the business. You hate for them to have to move because you want them to get situated, you want them to get comfortable with their friends and with the school. But I mean, it's one thing that it's always a possibility, and the kids did great whenever they moved here, 2010, and they've situated fine. They've established themselves here in Brazelton, and so they're good about it. But like I said, hopefully we will never have to make another move.
Okay, Matt. I've heard rumors that you drink a a milkshake before every game. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
My night before a game, I drink a chocolate milkshake. It started back my rookie year. I've always been a big fan of chocolate milkshakes, and so the night before my first game, obviously you don't know anything about what goes on really. I mean, the real stuff in the NFL, I guess, until you're actually on the team. And usually the night before the game, they have a pretty good spread for everybody, a meal that night, and then there's usually like a dessert table. And I saw the ice cream and the milk and all that stuff, and I asked somebody, like, "Hey, is that for us?" They're like, "Yeah." So I had an opportunity to fix myself a free milkshake. So ever since that time, I was like, you know what? That's my thing. So every night before a game, I'll make sure I have a chocolate milkshake.
That. Oh man. Speaking of goofy stuff that goes on, in 2009 there was a game in Buffalo where I think Matt Bosher went out, and you might have gotten injured at some point, and Croy Bierman was doing kickoffs. That's all I remember was Bierman doing kickoffs.
That's actually, Keenan was here. That was, but what happened was, it was a field goal right before the half. They blocked it, and me and Keenan were trying to make the tackle. He ended up getting a concussion, and so I then I was going to be kicking field goals. Matt Ryan was going to be holding. I was going to be doing the punts and the kickoffs. We're coming out to the second half. We received, so later on, I ended up having to punt. Well, whenever I went in to punt, I stretched something in my hamstring, or I pulled it a little bit. So after that, I was done punting. I was just going to be able to kind of just halfway leg it on extra points. But Redmond, our backup quarterback at the time, he was going to be the punter. We ended up scoring a few touchdowns, so that brought in Bierman. But yeah, that was a whole series of crazy things. It went from Keenan punting, kicking off, to me field goals, and him holding. And then when he got hurt, that then made me the punter, doing all the kicks. Matt Ryan was going to hold. And then whenever I got hurt, then that made Chris Redmond the punter, Bierman the kickoff guy, and Matt was still going to be holding, and I was doing the extra point. So, I mean, yeah, that was a crazy game that day.
Yeah.
I could just imagine Croy Bierman, though, kicking a field goal because it was just outside of the extra point range.
Oh, he had a pretty good leg. He could do it. And probably the funniest thing that, unless you were over there on the sideline, you didn't see, was his very first kick into the net to warm up. He missed the whole net and kicked the ball into the stands. And then his next kick, he got his foot caught up in the netting, on the sideline. So there was all kind of excitement with him getting ready. But we do a deal during the week, usually on Fridays at the end of practice. Different random guys get a chance to go out there and try to kick a field goal. And up until that time, Croy was pretty good. I think he had hit some from 40 or 45 or something like that. So I mean, I think he could have really done it, on short field goals, if it ever was presented to him.
If need be.
Right. Yeah.
Let's hope that situation never comes up again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's hope not. So, now you said you were leading up. You said that you do a couple things off the field. March of Dimes, ALS. What are your roles with those charities?
Well, coming from Tampa, we were the ambassador family for the March of Dimes there in Tampa. And once we moved here, we got in touch with this local chapter here. And, we've done as much as we can with the March of Dimes. And then myself with ALS. My dad passed from Lou Gehrig's. So that's why I got involved with that group. And then all of our kids, we have, spent considerable amount of time because of early births in the NIC units at the hospitals. And March of Dimes is such a big part of that, with helping these premature babies. And so it was an easy deal to be a part of them. And to be a part of March of Dimes, be a part of ALS, just because of the fact that, what we've seen, how it can affect a person. Basically, do as much as we can, when we can, for those two groups.
All right, Matt, thanks for being on. People can find you on Twitter at Matt_Bryant3. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, and we're looking forward to another great season with the Falcons in 2013.
I hear you, man. I think everybody's ready to go. I think it's going to be an exciting year.
All right. I bet you're looking forward to kicking lots of extra points with all those touchdowns that the Falcons are going to put up.
I'd much rather kick 100 extra points if I could.
Okay. Well, I hope we can have you later on the show during the season.
Yep, that'd be great.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central Radio Network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
That was Matt Bryant. I'm listening to the lyrics on that. It's great. On our intro. Sorry, I've always been a big fan of rap music. That was Matt Bryant. Thank you again for coming on. Welcome back to the beef of the Falcons Central Radio Show, presented by onit.com. Go to onit.com/footballradio. Order your supplements. Alpha Brain is pretty good stuff. It's like Adderall minus the stimulants, so it helps out. It's actually NFL approved.
It is NFL approved. I'm thinking about checking some out myself. Get my Richard Sherman on.
Yes, but doing it legally.
Yes. Exactly.
Because you don't need a prescription.
That's onit.com, onit.com/footballradio.
So, now that the sponsors are happy, we can go ahead and move on and talk about some fun stuff like Matt Stafford signing his contract, which sounds a little bit out of here, but it directly impacts Matt Ryan signing his contract. Matt Stafford signed for an average of $15 million a year, cementing essentially what a top 10 quarterback contract is, of anywhere between $18 to $20 million. With the guys who have won a Super Bowl able to claim the 20 area, and the guys who have not able to claim the 18.
Correct. He got about, I think, $53 million in new money over the next 3 years. So I guess that works out to be about a little bit under $18 million a year. So that's about that number. And the interesting thing, I look at the contract because I'm not sure if it's really about annual average, but really about how much you get paid in the first 2 or 3 years of the deal, because these contracts are so huge that you have to get them redone at a certain point. And with Stafford, he got, I think, $43 million in the first 3 years of his deal, which is a far cry from what recent contracts like Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco got, which I think was either 62 or 63 million in the first 3 years.
It was pretty insane.
Yeah. So,
but it's a good thing though.
Yeah,
we've got some ability here. When you look into a couple things related to contracts, and I think Ben Albright said it best. If I'm Matt Ryan, I go out there and I say, you know what, I'm going to take less money if I can get a lot more guaranteed. I'll take $16 million a year so that you can keep Julio Jones and all my weapons here, but guarantee 8 of that. I'll do that in a heartbeat. Guarantee half my money every year, and I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad plan. And if I'm the Falcons, I say, well, I should probably do that. Because with Matt Ryan's work ethic, it's not like he's going anywhere.
Nope. He's going to be here for a long time.
You know, he may not ever... I'm going to sound like a heathen to the Falcons fans. He may not ever win a Super Bowl based on simple probability of it's one out of every 32 teams every single year, and you got to fight for it.
Mm-hmm.
However, he does give the Falcons the best chance to make the playoffs every single solitary year.
And that does improve the odds, because then you got a 1 in 6 chance of making the Super Bowl, and then you're about 50-50 of winning the Super Bowl at that point.
Exactly. So he can make it to the dance. The question at that point is, does he have the surrounding crew to get past that? Honestly, I think he's got it this year, and I think they should sign him now before he goes Flacco on him. But
yeah,
I mean, $16 million a year for one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the game. I'd put him right around 6 or 7. You're not looking at a horrible quarterback here, and your franchise has already had 5 years built around him. You're going to build more around him once Roddy White leaves, and you got Julio Jones as your main number 1. You're going to need a number 2, because I don't see Drew Davis or Martell Moore or any of those other guys stepping up. No offense to any of those guys, but I don't see you being Roddy White.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah, I think Matt Ryan's probably going to sign for probably more than $16 million a year. But, you know, as I was saying, whether it's 19, 20, 21, 22, it really doesn't matter. It's all about what he's getting over the next 3 years. And that's going to be the money he's going to get paid. And then, you know, 4 years down the road, they're going to renegotiate his contract. And they'll probably end up restructuring it all along. You know, lowering base salaries, turning in the signing bonus, all that type of stuff to help add cap space right before free agency, or, you know, all that type of stuff that you've seen Tom Brady do over the years in New England to help them out. So that's basically what you're looking for. And I'm compared to the Stafford deal, I think Matt Ryan's going to be up in the $60 million range over the next 3 years. So I think that's really key.
I mean, yeah, probably about 19 is where I think he's going to be.
Okay.
You know, 19 average. I think the next 3 years, probably maybe 18. And I think he's going to keep his $12 million cap hit this year.
Okay.
Because, I hate to say it, I don't think that you're going to see... I don't think that you're going to see Richard Seymour in Atlanta anymore. He looks like he's ready to ride into the sunset. And John Abraham is not coming back unless he magically takes a minimum salary and O.C. Minoria. Butcher the last name.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm horrible with names like that because I'm just like, I can't figure this out. but OC gets injured, that would be the only way that Abraham comes back this year. Love John Abraham, one of my favorite players, but he's gonna have to just be like, hey, it's not about the money. I really just want to win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I wish it wasn't going to be the case, and I'd give my left kidney to get John Abraham back on his team, but it's not going to happen. Because as you said, he's basically, the only way it happens is if he takes minimum money, and he's not going to take minimum money because there's pretty much a chance that somebody else is going to pay him. I don't know if they're going to pay him what he wants right now, which is probably $4 or $5 million a year, but someone's going to be willing to offer him $2 or $3 million a year when camp comes around, and that's not going to be the Falcons. So
you could also look at it this way. Say Malachi Goodman and Jonathan Masterfly both get injured, because those are the two guys that the team is like super high on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Say both those guys get injured, you do need that other defensive end. You need that fifth guy on the team. Do you go with the guy that already knows the scheme and doesn't have to worry about anything else? Yeah. Do you go get John Abraham? Yeah. Do you offer him about 3 to 4? Yeah. Why not? Give him a $2 million bonus if he hits 11 sacks because he only got 10 last year. Won't hit the cap. I mean, Move him to the left side, which he would gladly do. He doesn't care who he lines up against. He just wants to line up. So.
Yeah. But, that's dependent on, two guys getting hurt, which.
You don't want.
Yeah, you don't want, and probably won't happen. So.
No, it probably won't. Even if it was like two of the lower guys that got hurt. Like. Cliff Matthews. Say it's Cliff Matthews and say it's Stanley Maponga, and they're the ones that get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You still need that fifth guy on the roster, and he knows the scheme. He knows the team. He knows the coaches. It's not like they don't like his character. It's just he just was too much money at this point.
Pretty much. Well, Scott, you were talking to me earlier before we started on the show, and I think you had some information, some updates on this whole stadium log jam that we seem to find ourselves in.
All right, basically, you've got an issue of Friendship Baptist Church, one of the oldest churches in Atlanta. Its history dates back to, Civil War time, basically. But it's been at multiple different sites. They can still be Friendship Baptist Church down the street. And by giving an offer to the city of what they want in order to move, they've said, you know what, the site isn't what's important. We just want to be able to have our money. Their offer to the city is $24.5 million. The city of Atlanta has said, we will give you $10 million as our initial offer. And then they moved up to 15.5 or 13.5. And then they moved up to 15.5. It's a property that's only worth about $1 million. And they could just say, screw you guys, we're going to build it on the north side. Which, honestly, that's what I'm hoping they do. And turn the old dome, where the dome is right now, turn that into a parking garage. And just say, screw it. That's what they should do. That's what I would do. Honestly, I would claim eminent domain and pay them what their property's worth. Because it's only worth around $1 million. Unfortunately, they still want that $24.5 million.
Yeah, this reminds me of a story. A friend of mine I went to high school with got drafted out of, I don't know what round, like the 30th round in the MLB draft or whatever it was. And he got an agent, and his agent was an inexperienced guy, friend of the family, and he got an offer from, I forget what team drafted him. I want to say the Rockies, but basically his agent rejected that first offer, and he said, "Don't worry, they'll send another offer. It'll be a better offer." So he rejects the offer. The Rockies or whoever the team happened to be send back a second offer. It's a better offer. Agent goes, "Don't worry, reject that offer. They'll send another offer. It'll be a better offer." Of course, the Rockies, it's like, "Hey, you're a 30th round pick. We're not going to sit here and bend over backwards to get you signed. So you can go screw yourself and go, play wherever the heck you're going to play." And they didn't send back a third offer. And in the case of Friendship Baptist Church, they've now gotten, what was it, 2-3 offers now?
This is their third offer. And honestly, if I was Arthur Blank, I'd say this is the spot. You either take it or we move to the north side and you guys can go to hell. And that's what I would do. That way they get nothing, not a dime for their stubbornness. You can't say, "Hey, we're going to move," and then what do? "Hey, we're going to move. If you give us $24 million, all right, well, we're going to keep our money and we're going to not have to pay anybody or any church to move on the north side. We'll have access from 3 MARTA stations at the north side. Not 1, not 2, 3 stations right there at the north side."
Yeah, it's,
We'll have way more parking. We'll have way more tailgating. Honestly, again, I would tell them to go stick it. I know it's a church, so you can't, give the gradual, nice New York greeting, the GFY. But for those that don't know, GFY is go F yourself. You could give them that, but keep it civil and just say, "You know what? Peace, stick it. We're taking our money. We're moving to the north side. We're going to spend this $15.5 million on nicer trees to surround the stadium."
Yeah, they came at their initial offer and they've gotten the Falcons to raise it by $5 million. So, at a certain point, if you're not just doing this to posture and you actually want to get money to move your site, you do have to. It's called negotiation. You kind of, at the end of the day, you kind of have to compromise. You can't just stamp your feet and say, "I want it," and expect the people to cave into you. So.
And that's when you go, "You know what, dude? Sorry, bye."
Yeah. As my former baseball playing friend who does not play baseball now can attest to, bad representation can get yourself screwed, people. So, word to the wise, if you need an agent, make sure you get a good one, not some bum who did your mother's taxes the year before.
Yeah, go with like Dave Cantor or the XAM sports people or Greg Linton, who are just like, "You know what? I like my client. Let me do what's actually best for my client."
Yeah.
That understand, "Oh, he's a 30th round draft pick? Yeah. Can we get more guaranteed money than that?" "Sure, not a problem. Here's more guaranteed." Boom, you're done. All right, sign. You're a 30th round draft pick. There's no reason to sit there and argue like you're a first rounder.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you get bad representation, because in the case of my friend, he told me that he would have accepted the first offer, but his so-called agent had told him, "Don't take the first offer." And then he advised him, "Hey, don't take the second offer." What does he know? He's a 17-year-old kid in high school. He doesn't know any better.
See, that's when you go, "You know what? My best interest is to sign the contract, right? Yeah, let me sign."
Yeah.
And did he try begging for one of the other 2 offers back, or they just wouldn't?
He did, but they didn't. It was just like they did the GFY. So he had to go play college ball, and that didn't work out too well for him. So that's unfortunate for him. And hopefully, the Friendship Baptist Church will and the Falcons will get this resolved so that both sides get what they want. Because that's, in the end, that's what people, Falcons get what they want, the church gets what they want, everybody's happy. But, if they're going to keep playing hardball, someone's going to get screwed, and,
See, my big thing is, if a property's worth $1 million and it's the city paying for it, that means that it's taxpayer money paying for that stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not completely paying for the stadium, obviously. They're only paying $200 out of the $1 billion, $200 million out of the $1 billion. But if part of that is to secure the site, and the site that you're trying to secure is, I don't know, $1 million, I would want proof that the 15 that I'm giving you is going to the right place. That it's not, I'm handing you $15 million, $1 million goes to buy the site, $1 million goes to a new building, like $1 million goes to you buying a new site, new building, all that stuff, and then $14 million just gets pocketed by people who are high up in the church. Because that could easily just happen. We're not talking about the best people here. We're talking about people who run churches.
I'm not going to go there, but okay.
Sorry, when organized religion starts asking for more money, it's like, really, dude? Come on, man.
I understand your sentiment, but
it's like,
sure there's a lot of people.
Thing is that I just don't understand why you need $15 million for a site that's worth $1. If you're gonna have $15 million for a site that's worth $1, I'm okay with that. But show me the community center that you're gonna build. Show me the plans that you're gonna have. Show me the homeless shelter you're gonna build. If you're a church, shouldn't that be your priority of why you want to get more money? They're not saying why they want to get more money. They're saying we want more money.
That's fair. Yeah, I am curious what that extra, and I guess $9 million that they still require.
Like, if you show me this friggin' badass like community center with indoor swimming pool and baseball fields and basketball courts for that area, I mean, okay, maybe I can be like, all right, well, you're using it for good, and all the kids get free membership in that area. Keep them out of gangs, keep them out of drugs. Okay, that's cool. Let them escape through sports. Run an arts program. That's great. Run free preschool, free daycare for the community. That's a good use. But when you're just sitting there going, we want more money, I'm sorry, but even that, I'm just like, come on now. Where is the money going?
Yeah.
Show me where the money's going, and I'll be glad to increase the offer. If $24.5 million builds this homeless shelter and this and this and this and this, and you're just ridiculously helping the community with it, hell yeah, go for it. But they haven't done that. They've just said, you know what, we want $24.5 million. It looks like greed. It looks straight like greed.
It does look that way. Apparently your dog is a member of the church, though, because he doesn't like the fact that you're speaking ill of the church right now.
No, my dog just heard other dogs barking, and he barked at them, so.
Okay.
Because that's what a dog does.
All right. Well, I think that's enough for this week, Scott.
That it is.
And we will be back next week. Please, people, send in your Falcons mailbag questions. Unfortunately, we didn't get to those today, but we will try our best to get to those next week. We look forward to having another set of great guests in the upcoming weeks. You can find us on Twitter. Tweet us those questions. You can send us to our show link on Twitter, which is @FalconsPFC. Or to either one of our Twitter accounts, @FalcFans for myself, @Scott Carasik for Scott. And any other things you want to plug, Scott, before we get off of here?
The only other thing that I would love to plug is vote Freddie Freeman. He deserves it. He deserves to be an all-star. Yeah, vote for him.
All right.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.